So you've had your first lesson, and I taught you how to set up the clarinet, but we're going to do a little review in case you got home and you forgot how to set up all those different pieces. So the first thing that's important to know is whatever kind of case you have, whether it's a briefcase or a backpack like this, usually the insignia of the instrument brand should be on the top so that when you unzip it, it does not tumble out. I have 3 different clarinets, and I'll use different ones in the different videos. This one's a backpack style and opens like this. Once you're inside of the case, there are 5 main parts to the clarinet. You have the mouthpiece. Usually there's a ligature and a cap. I do not have a cap on this one today. The cap is not necessary. It just protects the instrument in the case and if you were walking around. The second piece is called the barrel. The third piece is called the upper joint, and this is the smaller of the 2 really large joints. The next piece down, or the 4th piece down, is called the lower joint. And the last piece is called the bell, shaped like a bell. So I like to put my clarinet together top down, and usually a good idea is to put the reed in your mouth while you're putting the clarinet together. I'll talk about the reed in a separate video though. For now, we're just going to set up the basic 5 pieces. So take your mouthpiece, and if the corks are brand new on a clarinet, they're very, very stiff. All of these brown parts are corks. So when the instrument's brand new, it's important to grease each cork. You don't want to use any more than a tiny little dab of grease, just enough to get it shiny, but not any big gobs of it or anything like that. The mouthpiece will go on the barrel, and I like to use just little back and forth twists to attach the 2 parts. And if you're like me, you like to line up all the emblems, but you certainly don't have to do that. The next piece down, the upper joint, has 2 corks on it. So I'm going to grease both of those first. And the upper joint goes on the barrel. Now, if you put it on one way and it's really loose, that's obviously incorrect. Every joint fits together quite snugly, so just a little twist back and forth should bring them together. But like I said, it'll be very stiff in the beginning if it's new. This is where you have to be very, very careful. The upper joint and the lower joint fit together, and they are joined by a bridge. And right here, there's a little key called the bridge key, and I can move it up and down. If I press this ring, the lowest ring on that upper joint, the bridge is in the up position. And it's important that it stays in that position while the main 2 joints get put together. On the other lower joint, there's a matching part to the bridge. And if you're doing it right, all of the holes should be lining up as you're putting it together. So I'm going to open the bridge by pressing that ring down. I'm going to, with slow twists, put the bridge together, and then once it's lined up, I'm going to lower it. If you've done it right, all of the holes of the clarinet should line up together. The flat part of the mouthpiece lines up with this long key and the 1 hole that's in the back of the clarinet. The next part, the bell, just gets twisted on the bottom. Not really important how, but I would grab the clarinet towards the bottom. If you try to put the bell on and you grab the upper joint, you're going to twist the bridge key out of position. We don't want to do that. So we're going to grab the bottom, twist the bell on to match up my cymbals, and now the clarinet is completely set up. So you've had your first lesson and learned how to set up the clarinet, and maybe now you're home wondering, how do we set up all those parts? So I'm going to review it. The first thing you need to know is that when you open the clarinet, whether it's a backpack style case like this or a briefcase, the insignia needs to be on top of the clarinet when you open it. In almost every case, the insignia is on the top. So we're going to zip it open. And if we've done it the right way, the clarinet is laying on this part and it's not going to tumble out. There are 5 main parts to the clarinet. We're going to be putting together the mouthpiece, which is the part that goes in your mouth, the barrel, And some barrels have little metal bands on them. This one does not. The upper joint, which is one of the main joints of the clarinet with a lot of key work on it. The slightly larger lower joint. And last but not least, the bell. When clarinets are new, all of the corks on them are very stiff. So I have these brown corks, and in the first couple of weeks of ownership, you're going to need to grease those corks very, very frequently. And then as they get older, they compress and they get more slippery on their own. So before you even set up the clarinet, just put a dab of cork grease, just enough to make the cork shiny, and wipe it all the way around. I would do that on each cork of the clarinet before you start. And you may need to do that every day, and after a couple of weeks, you'll only have to do it every once in a great while. Once the courses are all greased, then you can put together the 5 main joints. While you're doing that, sometimes it's helpful to have the reed already soaking in your mouth, and we'll get to the reed in another video. So the mouthpiece and the barrel fit together. If it's too loose, you're on the wrong end. And I like to use small twists back and forth until they're completely joined together. If you're like me, you like to line up the insignias on the instrument. That's your choice. But those two parts should fit together snugly. The next piece is the upper joint. The upper joint goes into the barrel. And again, if it's too loose, you're on the wrong end. So you go to the end that's snug, lightly twist it together. And if you've done it correctly, the flat part of the mouthpiece lines up with the long register key that's in the back of the clarinet. On the front, your insignias line up. The next part is really delicate. There's a bridge key on the clarinet, and it is literally a bridge between the upper joint and right here on the lower joint. So we have to match this part to this part. We need to raise the bridge to do that properly. This ring right here, the lowest ring on that joint, raises the bridge up and down. We want it in the up position. I like to wrap my hand around the clarinet, avoiding these long keys, and just kind of put my hand down so that that bridge is in the raised position. The other side of the clarinet, the holes should line up. We don't want to twist too far, or else those keys and those keys are going to get damaged. Even today, I had a student who had one key bent way, way off to the side because she had collided those keys. So keeping it more or less so that the holes are lined up, little twists back and forth, keeping this hand on a low position in the clarinet and avoiding the keys as much as possible. Once those two parts are joined, you can lower the bridge. So you go from up to down. The last part is the bell. I'd like to hold the clarinet down low, again avoiding the keys, and you can just twist that right on. If you hold it up here, you're going to move the bridge key out of alignment, so you don't want to do that. And then you have the clarinet completely set up except for the reed and ligature.